I'm gonna bring on a Philly guy himself, the head coach of the Temple men's basketball, Aaron McKie, to start us off. Before we get to coaches versus cancer and these important topics, Aaron, you're a Philly guy through and through. What does Eagles Dallas week mean to you?
Oh man, that's big, man. That's big. We sitting pretty at the top of the division. So, my outlook on it all is, once the playoffs start, hopefully the Eagles get that position. Everybody record is the same at that point. So we got some things we're working through, the Eagles. Everybody's working through this pandemic and trying to figure out a way to be at their best. So I wish them all the, best of luck and, go beat them Cowboys.
You talk about everybody working through the pandemic and the work that you guys have done with Coaches versus Cancer. It's a little bit adjusted this year. You had the TV show that you did, but we've been having the coaches on to talk about the impact that the City 6 schools have really had on Coaches versus Cancer. You guys together have raised over $17 million. You've been involved as a player, now as a coach. Can you talk about what this means to you and why it's so important?
Well, it means a lot because we get to impact not just people that's fighting this deadly disease on a local level, but we get to impact on a national level. I just dealt with this disease, recently with my mother. I just recently lost my mother a couple of weeks ago to bone cancer, and it's difficult. It's difficult to see. But, it really puts things in perspective for me and why so many are out here fighting and continuing to try to find a cure for the numerous amount of cancers that's out there. And they do a wonderful job. And it's just not the City 6 guys here, but it's coaches across the country and people across the country as a whole. And they do a wonderful job of all hands on deck and trying to help everybody.
Aaron, one of the things that people in the city are most proud of is that coaches like you and the other coaches that have been involved in Coaches versus Cancer, including the ones that have preceded you, and Coach Dunphy and Coach Martelli, who we've talked to in recent weeks, is that you can fight on the court as hard as you do and then come off the court and come together for this cause. And it's what makes Philadelphia special. What's it been like for you to work with this fraternity of coaches off the court?
Is really just, those guys are passing the torch down to myself and Ashley Howard and Jay Wright and, all the other coaches that's involved. And at some point it's going to be us where we're passing the torch down to, to someone else. And it's a way for us to be able to give back. This basketball game has given me so much throughout my lifetime. And the one way that I could be able to give back is to use my position and use my voice to be able to help with this cause.
Aaron, you've been involved in the community for a long time, having grown up here, played for the Sixers, played for Temple, now coaching Temple. You played under a legend in John Chaney, who was so involved in the community. What lessons did you learn by playing for John Chaney?
Well, as a player, just learning how to be disciplined and learning how to be poised under duress. I think that's so important when you play in any sport. Those pressure moments that you don't want to crack under and fold under. It takes mental stability and mental toughness, and those are the things he taught us day in and day out. In terms of the community and in terms of people, what you put in is what you're going to get out. And he's always told me, and even through this pandemic, reach out to your friends and see how everybody is doing. Help them out as much as you can. Use your voice and all your other resources just to help people out because we all need it, whether it's monetary, whether it's just an ear, whether it's a voice of reason. In all different facets of life, we need help. And that's the one thing he's always told me, what you put into something is what you're going to get out of.
I joke with Jeff a lot. We talk about the impact that sports has on family. And my dad was a Temple grad, so I grew up watching the Mark Macon teams with him and then watching your teams with Eddie Jones out there on the court under Coach Chaney and those defenses. You got Mark Macon as an assistant now. You two ever get on the court and challenge the athletes a little bit?
No, I think Mark basketball is done. He had an Achilles injury a while ago, and my legs is not quite where I need them to be at this point. But we talk trash to each other, but more so we talked trash to the players and said, y'all pick y'all best two players and play us in 2-on-2, and we jokingly do it with those guys. But Mark was a huge inspiration to me in my career, just being a guy growing up in Philadelphia and just watching this phenomenon come from Saginaw, Michigan, and just giving this program a shot in the arm. And he come in as a McDonald's All-American and become an All-American in college, and just done a lot of wonderful things for this to help grow this program.
Being a Philly guy, I saw a quote from the former AD Patrick Graff. Patrick Graff, when you were hired, he's North Philadelphia. He's Philadelphia. I mean, he's the true Temple story. How do you use that to now sell the Temple legacy that had the success it had, that you're trying to bring it back to that level again?
Well, we talk about family, we talk about academics, and we talk about team chemistry. But most important, getting the opportunity to play in the city of Philadelphia. I mean, this is to me is the basketball mecca, where you have, the Big Five or the City Six of teams that you have the opportunity to play against. In a 10-mile radius, you get the opportunity to play against some storied programs in LaSalle, storied program in St. Joe's, Villanova, Penn, and you can go down the list of these programs, and we get a chance to do that. You get a chance in the summertime to rub elbows with professional basketball players, when those guys come and they use our facility and they play basketball. And if they're not playing here, they're playing at LaSalle. If they're not playing at LaSalle, they're playing at Penn. So this is the basketball mecca. So if you're not in season and you're not playing, you get a chance to go and play against the players in the summertime from LaSalle and all of the other surrounding schools, and you get a chance to rub elbows with professional basketball players. I mean, what better place do you want to be in Philadelphia? And it's in close proximity to New York, New Jersey, Washington, D.C., and you can get a train or you could take a bus and, go visit these different places. And, Philadelphia is centrally located. You got wonderful basketball, you got wonderful food, and you got passionate sports fans here. So it's a wonderful place to grow up and play basketball or start your career here.
Well, you talk about rubbing elbows with professional basketball players. Like you, Dr. J was my favorite basketball player growing up. I read a story about how you used to pretend to call the Sixers and ask to speak to Dr. J.
Yeah, I used to do it every day when I came home from school. Being naive, I would come home and I still remember the number in my head, 215-339-7676. I would come home and dial that number every day, thinking that I was going to get one of those guys on the phone and just to talk to him. And that's how much I enjoyed watching those guys and watching the Sixers. And all of those guys were really my favorite players. But, Doc just, he stood out the most, and, he was the guy. And, I just wanted to hear his voice, and was foolish enough to think that somebody was going to pass him the phone and have to sit down and have a conversation with him.
Okay, so at some point you play for the Sixers. At what point do you actually get to meet Dr. J, and what is that experience like for the kid that grew up just dialing the phone trying to talk to him?
Well, the funny part about it is I met him after I graduated from Temple. He was venturing into being a sports agent, and he wanted to have a sit down with me and talk about representation, and I was just in awe. Get a chance to sit down with Dr. J, and he's talking about being my agent. Now here's a guy that I idolized as a kid growing up and watching him and watching his fascinating career, and really how he was one of the guys that helped transcend the NBA and make it cool and to the public viewers, not just on a national level but on a global level. And then I get a chance to sit down and have lunch with him and talk about NBA and talk about what I want to do with my career. And that was my introduction to him, and it was just a surreal moment for me.
And then you end up on the court for that team you dreamed of playing for. Not just on the court, sixth man of the year you went to the finals, playing with another player who transformed the game in Allen Iverson. What was that season like and the opportunity you had there?
Oh, it was awesome. I mean, it was awesome. We was just a good group of guys that enjoyed working, and we got along well with each other, and we all just had one common goal, and that was to win. A lot of winning came through, our star player in Allen Iverson, and I thought that we complemented his identity. We compliment the guys that we had around him, complimented his identity well. And again, the one thing we all had, the common goal that we had was just winning. So we went out there and we practiced hard, and from practicing hard, it translated to playing hard in games. And that's the mindset that you want to have in anything that you do. If you practice hard, you're going to play hard, and the game becomes easy for you.
He obviously was a fan of yours at his retirement announcement after saying your name 6 times. He said, he was my teammate, was on another level. It was more than just basketball with me and him. I made a million mistakes, but if it weren't for Aaron McKie, I had made 2 million of them. What was that relationship like with AI on and off the court? And how did that help you as you now try to relate to today's players that you're bringing in, who are probably in awe of the fact that you got to share a court with AI?
Well, I mean, we're different, but we have a lot of things in common. We're different basketball players. But we enjoy playing cards together. We enjoy playing video games together. There's so many things. We enjoy cracking jokes. Just things when you really sit down and you get a chance to know somebody on a surface level, you learn a lot about them. And the one thing that's misunderstood about him is he's a good person. He wears emotions on his sleeve. He has a heart of gold, and he would do anything for anybody. As you guys have probably heard about a million stories about him and his friends that he hang out with, and so many tried to get him to, remove his friends and the guys that he grew up with, why? And the one thing I always told him that I respected about him was he did things his way. He did things his way. And a lot of people will have a hard time standing up for what you believe in. He wanted to wear his cornrows or whatever, which, wasn't popular, but it's something that comes from our culture that, then he wanted to show America a piece of our culture and how you do things. He wanted to wear the baggy clothes. It wasn't stylish to some, but for him, it was a part of his culture and the things that he liked to wear and the things that he was comfortable in. And he was just always comfortable in his own skin. And I think that's what a lot of people not liked about him, loved about him. He was this little domino on a basketball court. And when you think about somebody dominating the game of basketball, you think it's this big, powerful, 7-foot, strong, burly player. When you look out there and you hear Allen Iverson, it's this 6'1", fast, high IQ, athleticism and grace along with it. That's what you saw out on the floor. It wasn't a 7-foot, big, strong guy. It was this 6'1" guy that just dominated the game of basketball on so many levels, So that's what I respected him so much about is Allen always did things his way and was unapologetic about it.
You talk about athletes doing things their own way. Especially this year, we're starting to see athletes even more use their platforms in a very vocal, positive way. You're somebody that's done that for a long time. When you played for the Sixers, you rented out the Liacouras Center where the Owls play their home games to hold Thanksgiving food drives for the homeless. What has it been like for you to be able to use your platform to benefit the city, and how do you pass that along to the student athletes that you're dealing with now?
It was done for me. If you use your platform in the right way, it bears the fruit of guys like myself. I didn't have it all, growing up, the resources that I need around me to help me become successful. But there were people who donated their time, donated their efforts and their resources to help me get to where I'm at in life and spend countless hours and just trying to mentor me through life. I wasn't the easiest person to get along with, and it took me some time to get it, but I got it at some point. And luckily, the mentors of Bill Ellaby and John Harnett and Coach Chaney and countless others were patient enough to wait for me to come around, and I came around, and here I am now. I'm sitting in that position, and I get the opportunity to impact young lives, and the same lessons that I got from those guys and countless other people is the same thing that I want to give to our our team. And the one thing I try to tell them is, look, you're going to live a lot more life than you will playing this game of basketball. And again, as I said earlier, what you put into it, what you put into the game of basketball is what you're going to get out of it. And the same thing goes for life. What you put into the game of life is what you're going to get out of it. So let's work hard. Let's outsmart them. Let's outwork them every day and fly low and stay quiet and just try to pull others up, raise their level and just try to help others. And they will position themselves if they're not basketball players, if that's not their calling, and they're certainly going to be productive citizens and be successful at some other aspect of life. And that's how I try to raise them, because that's what was done for me.
You mentioned being back on the court. It's obviously been a different type of year preparing to get back on the court. You got one of the best guards in the country in Nate Pierre-Louis, the foundation plus a tough front court. How you prepping for the season? What should we expect to see out there when you get back?
Well, we're going to be young, and Nate's not with our program anymore. He's pursuing his professional career. So we're going to be young. We have a lot of new faces here, guys that we're bringing in, freshmen and some transfers, and with a mix of some experienced guys that we have, and Dre Perry and J.P. Mormon and Jake Forrester, who are three of our guys that saw significant, meaningful minutes last year. So it's going to be fun, watching the growth of our young guys and watching our, more experienced guys provide leadership for those guys out on the floor. So, we want to play an up-tempo style of game, which is the way the game of basketball is being played, and we're going to have to defend our tails off every night, rebound the ball, and, that's going to give us the best opportunity to win basketball games every time we step on the floor.
Well, Coach, we can't wait to see you guys get back on the court, and we wish you the best of luck in terms of the season and also what you're doing with Coaches versus Cancer. And thank you for everything you're doing, developing some quality men in the program. Best of luck to you, and thanks for the time.
All right. Thanks, guys.